I welcome you all to our today's webinar with Carbolution and the topic, the reasons to start a startup. And Dr. Michael Bauer, now I use the full name, will tell you something about why and how you should start a startup. Michael himself, he studied at the Saarland University. He did his PhD there. Then he was the lab head at Roma Organics in Saarbrücken, I guess, also for 3 years, until he decided to start his own company in 2010, which is Carbolution, an online chemical vendor for chemicals that are mostly used in research and development. And since then, he's leading a company that sells chemicals to most universities, research institutes, and companies. But for the details, he can mostly, or for sure, tell you more about it. And this is why I want you to welcome him now, not with claps already, because we can't do that, but we imagine them. Welcome.
Thank you, Sylvia, for that lovely introduction. I tried to share my screen with you all. That should work about now. And I tried to start the presentation. Sylvia, if you could give me a quick feedback as if everything's okay.
Fully okay.
So, let's start. Before I start, I want to say thank you to Sylvia and Max from the JCF in Siegen for inviting me to give you a talk about my reasons to start up. And the main reason I do this is because I think maybe it can help you, because I was struggling a lot in my CV. I always wanted to be, like 15, 20 years ago, I wanted to be a small cog in a big wheel. And now I ended up being my own wheel. And that ended up just right, but the way to that could have been more straight. And that's why I sometimes I drive around and tell my story. Now I am online to tell my story, to maybe tell everybody that starting up or starting their own businesses is an option in the CV. That is something you could do, but not something everybody has to do. That's a difference, and that's very important to me to point that out at the very beginning. I'm not here to tell you everybody start a startup. That's not my point. I just want to show you that starting a startup or starting your own company or being self-employed is an option that you have. Okay, let me walk you through some episodes of my very early life. I talked about struggles in my CV, and I want to just tell you some of them. In the very early days in kindergarten, my career aspiration, of course, was being a train driver. I think that's nothing special. Many kids probably want to be a train driver. Then later at high school, or after finishing high school with the Abitur, I wanted to be a punk rocker. I think that's also nothing special. At that time, at least, many of my friends wanted to be punk rockers. Maybe a little bit more special is the hammer thrower thing. I was a sportsman then. I was pretty successful. In Germany, I was one of the best hammer throwers. That's an athletics thing. And indeed, I had to choose between a career as a sportsman or going to the university. That was a decision I had to take, and I chose the university because that was a year when success was not how it was supposed to be, and so I chose the university. Both things together, that was impossible, because if you are a sportsman and if you are at a certain level, semi-professional, then you don't do it like besides or after you return from the university. You all know that studying chemistry is also something that you can't do part-time. So I had to choose chemistry or hammer throwing, and I chose chemistry. Then at the university, I wanted to be anything at the university. Maybe that's also something that some of you know. Being at the university is great, doing your own thing in the lab, doing your own research. That's pretty cool, at least in the beginning. I thought it was, and I wanted to go for an academic career. That was, I thought, a pretty cool thing for me. Then later that changed completely. When I was doing my PhD, at some point I wanted to be anything in the industry, because industry was at that time a pretty cool perspective to me, because of influences that came from the outside. You know, there was this German pharmaceutical company, the biggest of them. They invited me for a workshop for PhD candidates, like 3, 4, 5 days. I can't remember exactly, where we were at the Bayer facility. Oh, you didn't hear the name, did you? At their facilities, they were giving talks to us. They showed us everything, the production. That was pretty impressive. And in the evenings, we had big parties, of course. We had barbecues and drank a lot of wine and beer and stuff like that. And that was cool. And this company was not the only company that sort of made me feel good with them. So my plan was, you know, being that small cog in the big wheel in the industry, have my things to do in a big working system. That was what I was going to do. And as I mentioned earlier, everything was different than when I was in the industry. I was not in one of the big players. Toroma Organics, Sylvia mentioned it earlier, was a startup. It was a friend of mine who started this startup together with two fellows. I was the first paid worker for them. They were only doing this part-time, but I was there full-time. But I was only the worker. I didn't have any decisions to do. They knew everything better, but I understood everything better. But they didn't ask me for decisions. So at one point, we were separating from each other. There was always this thought that I thought, well, if I had to decide, I would have done this differently. And then there was this time when things went bad and the revenue wasn't as it was supposed to be, and I got kicked out. And that was the point when I thought, well, I always thought if I had to decide, I would do that differently. Now I can do it differently. That was in 2010. They kicked me out. I was jobless in February or March. And then I knew that my only career aspiration that I want to, that's really my wish, is being myself, start my own company, as I always wanted to do. So in October 2010, I started Carbolution Chemicals. That's what it looked then, and that's what it looks now. That was at the university in Saarbrücken. At the starter center there, I was alone then. And I was, I never in my life I had anything to do with startups or starting my own company. I remember my mother saying, but you can't start your own company because Saarland, the region where I come from, is a very industrial region, and you don't start companies, but you go to some company and work for them. That's the in the mind of the people, and that was also my mind and my mother's mind. But as I told you, I just had to try this. I just had to start this on my own because I wasn't happy with other people's decisions. So the idea behind Carbolution Chemicals was that I always wondered why research chemicals are so expensive in Germany and in Europe. And it's really a difference that the price level in Europe is higher than the price level in the US or in Asia or in any other parts of the world. And that is because there's an oligopoly situation in Europe. We have just a few big suppliers. You name them, Merck and VWR and sorry. And they keep the prices high. And in other regions in the world, there are many more small suppliers and much more competition. And competition, of course, makes the prices lower. So the idea was to be a supplier for research chemicals and to have the prices below the level that we have in the EU, but above the level in US and Asia, so that I can buy the chemicals from there, have my own benefit. The customer, of course, saves a lot of money because I sell the chemicals cheaper than the other ones here do. So we both benefit from it, and we have a win-win situation. I would just quickly demonstrate that. This is EDC, a peptide coupling reagent from Merck. This is upper left. You see that's yesterday at the day before yesterday, 8 o'clock in the morning. 25 grams, 388 euros. That's a lot of money. And now you can do a simple thing. You can all do that on your own, maybe afterwards. In the upper right corner, there's the region where you come from. Usually the browser detects that on its own, but you can also choose. Of course, the browser chooses Germany for you, and you can change that to the USA and see what happens then. Then the 25 grams of the same reagent, the same EDC, most probably out of the same factory, is 25 grams, only $272. That's dollars now. So that's 36% cheaper. And there's no reason for that. There's no reason why the same product in the USA is 36% cheaper than it is here in Europe. But the only reason is that the competition is different. It's the value of this product doesn't differ in Europe on the one hand and in America on the other hand, but the price is different, and that's what Carbolution tries to use in the business model, to buy the chemicals from where they're cheap and to sell them here and to have that win-win situation that I showed you. Actually, the Carbolution price today is much, much cheaper than that because even in the US, Merck is not the cheapest source you can think of. So the idea of it all was to take the chemicals from where they are cheap into our market, so to say, and to connect, so to say, the suppliers or the manufacturers overseas with the universities and research institutions in Europe. And why did I choose them? Because I was at the university myself. I was a researcher myself. I was in that startup where I was working as a lab head. So I had a lot of, we were a contract research organization. So I knew very, very well that's a real problem, that the chemicals are very expensive. And that's a market that I knew very well by then. So that was a good thing to start. That's the one thing. And the other thing is that universities and research institutions are a market that the others aren't very keen on. That's a very small market if you compare it to the big pharmaceutical companies, and Merck and VWR, and they concentrate on the big pharmaceutical companies, and nobody concentrates on universities and research institutions. So the idea was to be the first to do that, to concentrate on what they need and to be the best in fitting their needs. So that's a little bit like connecting the dots. That's a business model. Connecting the dots of the manufacturers with the European university, for example, mainly Germany. Why do I do that? It's very, very hard for the German universities to contact a Chinese manufacturer, because first thing, you have to find one. There are many, many, many of them. You have to find one that you don't send the money and get nothing back, probably would be a good choice. And one that makes a good quality is probably also a good choice. And that's very hard. It's like finding the right corn finding a right corn on a beach with many sand corns. That's one thing. The other thing is transporting chemicals from China to Germany is not the easiest thing to do. You have to deal with dangerous goods regulations. You have to do with things at the border. You have to deal with, of course, international trading is always not so easy to do. The Chinese suppliers, in many cases or in most cases, they want advance payment. So you have to know who to trust. And that's a very complicated thing. You have to be very experienced in doing that. So the idea was to do that in a full service manner, to to be someone that the customer can call and ask, I want this and that chemical, and you do everything, or I would do anything to have this chemical delivered to the customer with a German invoice, with a German label on it, with a German certificate, with a German MSDS, and things like that. Then I wanted to have the chemical stock available, because if you order a chemical from China, if you order big amounts, it takes weeks. If it comes by ship, it takes weeks until it's there. And of course, if you need 25 grams of EDC, you can't wait 6 weeks until it's there. So I decided to have a stock with chemicals, to have like the core of the product list always stock available. There are some products that aren't stock available, but the most of them are stock available. And a very important part of the business model is that you have then a scale effect. That means you buy it in big amounts and you sell it in small amounts, and then you have a price gap between that. If you look at the price per gram. And the bigger the scale difference is, the more money I make. So that's, in just a few words, the business model. There are some things that are more complicated, but I don't want to go too much into detail, because you all want to enjoy your weekend soon. So I wanted to be, in one sentence, a German supplier, but with international prices. I wanted the customer to be able to go to the website of a German supplier, have everything like they know it from the others, but only cheaper. But as quick as the others, as safe as the others, and as a good quality as the others have. So if you have a business concept, if you have an idea how it should work, you need a business concept. And that was a thing. I told you I got fired in February and I started Carbolution in October. So what did I do in the months in between? I can tell you it was anything else than holidays. I was preparing. I was writing a business concept, and then you have to deal with things like marketing mix and SWOT analysis and liquidity outlook and budgeted balances, and that's things I hadn't heard of them before. Maybe you have, but I hadn't. So I knew that I was gonna find some help, and luckily there is a lot of help that you have. You need that business concept, but there's no way to do it without it. You need a plan to follow. It's not a good idea to start your own business, to start a startup on just a feeling, on I want to do this and that because I have the feeling that it's gonna change the world. That's not a good idea to do that without a plan. You need a plan, but you don't know how to get that plan. You have to get some help. And these are just a few institutions that I asked in. That's very regional, the support. And these are supporters in Saarland. I won't go too much into detail there. Just to name them, that's on the left side, the SIKB, that's the Investment Credit Bank of the Saarland. Then the Business Angels Network, the Gründer Campus Saar, that's the starter center that I mentioned at the university, at the Saarland University. And then the I don't know if work agency is the right word. They also helped me a lot by funding me at the beginning. Then I was lucky to have a network of people supporting people who want to start their own business. That's the SOG, Saarland Offensive für Gründer. That's Saarland Offensive for founders. That's a network of all institutions and actors who want to support people starting their own businesses, and that's very well organized from where I am in Saarland. That's all under the supervision of the ministry, and they coordinate the actors very well. And you know, if you have a question, you can ask them, and they will take you by the hand and take you to somebody who can answer this question. And that's a very good thing in the Saarland. Then I did a business concept competition, 1, 2, 3, go. I was lucky to win that competition. That was a very good thing, not only because I won, but also because they do a lot of workshops for you, and you get a lot of feedback from them for your business concept. You don't only write a business concept, send it there, and they tell you you won or you failed, but they give you feedback. They tell you this thing is very good, this part is not so good, and this part maybe you should ask somebody to get you further on that. That was a very good thing. The other thing is that I won an award in 2015 by the KfW. That's a German funding bank, maybe. That was also a very good thing because there was also a lot of valuable feedback involved with that. So I did all these things. I asked people to help me, and they did. That's why nowadays I am doing it the other way around. I let people ask me, and that's why I am giving this talk to you. That's one way to give all this that I got then. I give it back now, you know, because I was so grateful to get all that help, and now I want to help others, and hopefully do. So what came out is Carbolution as we know it now. Carbolution tries to be fair, quick, and likable. The business model is that we have standard qualities. I told you that we concentrate on universities and research organizations. They do their research. They don't need food quality. They don't, in many cases, they don't need pharmaceutical qualities, but they need standard synthesis qualities of chemicals to do their tests and to do their reactions. They always need low prices. There's no university in the world that has a lot of money to spend, so they're all looking for low prices, and the price is, in many cases, is the main argument for purchasing a chemical. If you have two suppliers and one supplier is a little bit cheaper than the other, you will choose the one supplier. Then some things to make it easy. I think it's very important to keep it easy. We have free shipping. We have overnight shipment of the products that we have on stock. If you order before 3 p.m., we will try to get that chemical to you by the next day, by the next morning even. And as I told you, We started in 2010. We turned 10 years this year, and that's why I hate the Corona crisis most. We will not be able to have a big party, probably, but we will celebrate the 11th birthday, I promise. That's just to get an impression of the products we have. We have a very big expertise in peptide reagents, coupling reagents, as well as the amino acids with protecting groups wherever you need them. We have the protecting groups on their own. We have metals as catalysts and as the raw materials. Of course, then also the ligands. We have some building blocks like boronic acids, like heterocycles and stuff, some biotech things. And of course, that's always the biggest group, the others group. That's how we look. Today we are 4 people. I told you I started alone. Now we are 4. That's Rosa on the left. She does the everyday business. If you order something, Rosa will probably be the person to take care for that order. I do the rest. Christina is doing some documentation stuff. She was away for a baby leave or mother leave. I don't know what the right word is. She's back now for some hours only, and she does documentation stuff. And Sebastian is, so to say, the back of it all. He does the purchasing and all the thing behind the scenes, so to say. He's the COO, Chief Operating Officer. Okay, and by now, I told you, Germany is the region where we come from. Germany is the region that we concentrate on, and by now we have almost every university in Germany that has a chemical or pharmaceutical department is a customer of ours, almost every. I hope you find yourselves there. Then we have many research organizations like the big institutes that you all know, mainly in the, you know them all. To have that a little bit easier, I compiled a negative list of the universities, just a list of the universities that have not yet purchased. It looks like that. That's funny, but it is true. It is really true. And I'm so grateful that Sylvia and Max had such a bad feeling about that they asked me and invited me to give that talk to you. And maybe they are, from all of you Siegen guys, maybe there are one or two of you who need something and I can help. That would be perfect, because only if the list looks like that, I will be released from my nightmares. And I hope we can make it. For the rest of my talk, I want to tell you something about what I know about facts or prejudice. Let's talk about pressure first. Many people think it's very hard to have that, to lead a company. It is, yes, but a job at company A or company B is also not so easy. It's always hard, whatever you do. Maybe you have to be, maybe it's like more if you like it or not. Like with every job. And I think it's very dramatic if you read There's a Dark Side to Startup and it haunts 30% of the world's most brilliant people. That is obviously true, but they just weren't made for it. And that's what I told you in the very beginning. I think not everybody is by far not everybody is made to have their own company, but I think for the ones who are, it's the best thing you can think of. So I don't have a problem with pressure. Of course, sometimes my job follows me home, but I am pretty sure that all of you have something to follow you home from the lab. That doesn't change. And when I think about some of my friends who have their jobs in the industry, they also have jobs that follow them home. So it's different to have an own company, to lead people and to be responsible for people, for the jobs of people. That's a thing not everybody is good at and a thing not everybody is made for. But I just experienced that I am, and maybe one or two of you also are made for that, and then you should try it. Let's talk about risk. You all know these two, Condor and Lufthansa. The thing my mother told me not, or my mother asked me, you can't start your own company, do you? I said, why not? Because it's so risky. Yes, it is. It's always risky to start your own company. There are numbers of like 90% that fail. I think it's 90% in Silicon Valley, 90% fail. And here in Germany, it's a lot less, I'm sure. But the others failed too. Condor failed even before anyone had ever thought of a coronavirus. Condor's a very big company and they failed. Lufthansa now is a much bigger company, and they're hit very hard by things that they didn't want and don't have anything. They can't. They didn't have it in their hands, but they have a very big crisis right now, and you are never safe from crisis, and it's always risky to do anything. And the funny thing is, whenever I give that talk, I gave that sometimes, and it's always different companies that I have on this slide. Today it's Condor and Lufthansa. Last time it was, I don't know, Volkswagen or something like that. It's always somebody else. And if I have learned a lesson over the past years, that if it comes to risk, leading your own company, doing it good or doing it bad, it's got nothing to, or not so much to do with good or bad luck, but with making the right or the wrong decisions. You have it in your hand. You can make it go like this, and you can make it go like this. It's got much more to do with the decisions you make. Let's talk about growth. That's also a thing that, the classical startup approach is growing as quickly as possible to be as valuable as possible, to do an exit then and get as much money as possible for your idea that you had a few years earlier. That's a classical startup approach. That's not my approach. And the thing is, you can do that just like you want to do it. If I had this approach, I would have been able to do that. I would have taken up more money, and then I would have been able to grow faster, but I didn't want to. I wanted to be the first key in a maybe in a family company, a small company that grows organically with not so much money involved, with not so much money involved always means that there's much risk involved. So growth can be the holy cow, and for many people it is the holy cow, and that's nothing bad about that. But I don't think that it has to be the holy cow. You can adjust your growth, and that's a very important thing that I learned. I don't want to exit in like 5 years. I don't want to sell my company to somebody who gives me a few million euros for it. But I want to lead a company that I am happy with, and that maybe at one point I can give to my daughter. That's a dream that I have. And I can do it. I can adjust that because I have it in my own hands. Talk about money. I haven't earned a lot if you just see what I got out of it. 350,000 euros in 10 years, that's not so much for somebody who spent, I don't know, 20 years, no, not 20 years, but a lot of years at the university studying chemistry and doing its PhD. You can have a lot more in the industry. That's not much, but you have, or I have, much more things. I am the owner of a company. I am the only owner still of Carbolution Chemicals, and that's also a value. A company, you can also measure that in euros if you want. I don't want to. I know that I have a company that has a value, and you have to add that value to the earnings, to the 350,000 euros. And but there's much more than the values. It's I have a flexibility that I wouldn't have if I worked for the industry. I can I can choose my place to be. I am here in my region, in St. Ingbert, in Saarland. I wouldn't be there if I had to work for an industry company, because there is no industry company where I am. So I would have to move somewhere. I would have my family to move there. And so you're kind of a slave to the system. And I am not a slave to any system. I can choose my place to be. That's one thing. I can choose my work time even. Right now, the kindergarten is closed, and I can spend my mornings at home taking care of my little daughter. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had a job at the industry. Probably I wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's much more than money to earn. So the last thing I want to do is to talk about happiness. I think or to me, that means much more. And Heinrich von Kleist he had the same opinion, maybe. A person's first act of independence is the drafting of such a plan for his life. That's a very important quote for me, because you don't, that's the message I try to send over to you. Don't let anybody choose your way of doing it. Choose it by yourself. Make your own plan. I hope that I could show you that starting your own business is one option that you have. The other options are industry job. The others are an academic career. but you have to see all the options to choose the one that is best for you. And I told you about my struggles. I wish you that your CV is straighter than mine, and that you yes, don't have to struggle. And if I could just help you a little bit in that way, then I fulfilled my mission today. I say thank you for listening. Viva la Carbolution, and I hope that we have a very good discussion right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too, Michael. And we already have some questions, and I guess I saw Melanie first, so maybe Melanie starts with her questions.
Yes, thank you for the nice talk. I've got two questions that are maybe kind of related to each other, because I'm actually kind of thinking of founding my own business somewhere in time, but I do not have an idea that I'm really convinced of, and I'm kind of struggling on how to find an idea. So I would like to know from you at which point you were, or how did you came up really with the idea of Carbolution? Was it like the one and only, or did you have several in your mind, and then you choose in between? And at which point have you been really convinced of that your idea could work successfully as a business concept?
The answer is the idea is not the idea. The idea that you start with is not the idea that you come out with. You have to work on the idea, and that happens when you write your business concept. The idea is always just a feeling. When you write your business concept, you get flesh to that bone. The idea, in my case, it was there from my experience that I had working in the lab for altogether maybe 10 years. And now I always thought, why not buy chemicals from where they are cheap, and then you have them cheaper than the others have. I thought many years about that idea maybe, and then I had the opportunity to just do it, and to then when I saw the opportunity, I told you about the startup that I got kicked out of, and that was an opportunity when I said, well, now I will do my own thing. And then I started really working on that idea, and really when you work on a business concept, you also have to do like the financial numbers, and then at a point you see that maybe the outcome isn't that good. You have to change something and to make it work, and then the idea changes. So if you say you're not convinced of your idea, maybe you haven't worked enough on it. Maybe it's not the idea. Maybe it's just that you haven't. Maybe it hasn't grown enough. Maybe the point is good, but you have to work a little bit further on that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and actually, like the last part is really true, because it's just like kind of a feeling that it maybe fit for myself, like having an own business, but I'm not really pushing it forward. So it's like, yeah, not really like an actual topic for me now, but it might be, for example, after 5 years or something.
If you, I told you I am trying to give something back from what I got in the early days, from the help that I got. I try to give that back, and I am in my free time, I am working as a coach and as a business angel sometimes a little bit. And if you all have ideas and want somebody to just review it or to just give you a feedback, then just contact me at any time. I'm glad to give you a feedback. You too, Melanie, of course.
Thank you.
If that was all for Melanie, I guess we can go on with Gabriel.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Okay, so thank you very much for the talk, Michael. It was really interesting. And well, when you were talking about making your company grow, one of the things that it made me think was that well, the most common approach is to make your company grow as fast as possible.
Mhm.
And somehow that sounds like it resonates more with the American market, with the way things are done in America. On the other hand, I've heard that, for example, Germany is a particularly tough market to penetrate. So would you say that it is possible to extrapolate the knowledge regarding startups that we get from let's say, the American school of thinking and bring them to Europe? Do you think that would be possible?
That's what many people try to do. A lot of places try to copy Silicon Valley. A place right here around the corner tries to be Silicon Valley, actually. And my point is not that I say there's, this and that is good at this approach and this and that is good at that approach. My point is that you can choose your own way. You can choose your own approach, and you can choose between growing as quickly as possible or growing organically and trying to build up something that lasts. My way is to build up something that lasts and to not do it that quickly. If you try to grow that quickly, you have to have partners. You need money, and you can go to the bank and ask them for money. But if you want to do it the classical startup approach, you have to ask partners. You have to ask business angels to invest. You have to ask other investors, venture capital, and that always means that you give parts of your company or parts of your baby away to somebody else, and you give power to somebody else. And that's something that I didn't want. That's the other part of it. I didn't want anybody to have power over my baby. And I wanted to be the only owner of it. And every startup has investors, every classical startup has investors who do much of the thinking and much of the leading.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Gabriel, you're done?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, okay, cool. Then we can go on with Lucas.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to know, is it easy for you to separate between your private life and your work life? And when you get stressed, I think you have a lot of responsibility. When you get stressed, what are your tools to get back and be creative again?
The answer maybe is different when you ask it now compared to 2 months ago. Today it's a struggle. Maybe everybody. I have a kid, I have a partner in life, and you have to try to get around as good as you can. That's the way how it works now. And maybe 2 months ago it was easier, and I think I am quite good at separating. I try to have my work things here in the company, and I try to have my private things at home. I think everybody has to find their ways. You are sitting in a lab,
Yes.
So you also have things to follow you home, don't you? And
Yes,
you
of
also
course.
have to find your way to separate. You have reactions that go wrong, and you think about it on your way home, and you hope that it stops before you reach home. That's pretty much the same that I have. And let me tell you a secret: kids help.
Okay.
If you have a kid at home, then you're automatic. There's an automatic switch off that's just there. And
Okay.
the thing that helps me, I think it's very important to have something that you can think about in your private life. And for me, this is music. Music is a big hobby of mine, and during or at normal times, I do it like twice a week. In the evenings, I meet with other people and make music, and that helps me a lot. I had times when I didn't do that. I was still at the university when I had 2 years that I didn't do that, and it made me crazy at some point, and I didn't realize that it's the missing of that. I thought that I didn't have time to do that. I wanted to use my evenings to go forward in my chemistry life or something like that. But it's the other way around. You have to have the time to do something else. You can't just focus on one thing 100%. Then that makes you crazy. You have to have the time to do anything else, anything you like, and then that's the two poles that balance each other.
Okay. Thank you. I can identify with that, of course. Thank you.
That was very inspiring. Thank you. And thanks for the question. I had a similar one, but I'm happy that someone from the audience asked that. And we have a few more questions. I guess Christoph is the next one in line. Christoph, would you like to? Or did I miss it? Oh, yeah, no. It's Christoph who wants to ask by himself.
Christoph just wrote skip me.
Ah, yeah, I see it.
Okay, now it works. I'm sorry.
Now it works.
I couldn't see my microphone, so I wasn't able to ask my question. So my question was if you have any analytical devices in your lab or storage room at Carbolution, because some chemicals like EDCl or so, they're really reactive and they decompose over time. So I was just asking if you have something like an IR measurement device or, I don't know, any others?
Actually, we have nothing. When we were at the university, which was at the first 7 years, we could use the university their stuff to have our measurements. We did in the first days we did NMRs of each and every chemical that we had in our hands. But you as you get more experienced, you know which supplier to trust and which supplier not to trust, and you know where to maybe to look a little bit more into the quality and where you can just trust your supplier that the certificates that they ship with the products are okay. So we did like NMRs only in the critical cases, but today it's just when we really have a bad feeling that we look a little bit more into the details. Then we have to use like external people who do that for us. It's much more expensive now, of course, to do analytics. But usually we don't have to, because the suppliers that we work with are very strong, and they, of course, they ship certificates with every chemical, and by now we know who to trust and who not to trust, and we buy the chemicals from the ones we trust. And so the quality, if it comes in, is perfect, or is just how we want it to be. But you say if we store the chemicals, it's possible to, that they decompose. That's true. And that's not an easy thing to handle with. We try, of course, to be very careful. We do a lot of our storage under argon, and we have big refrigerators and stuff like that. So we try to be as good as possible to the products, and even if we had analytical systems, we wouldn't be able to do analytics each and every time we take out a chemical from the fridge, just in case it had decomposed. So we try to look at the products, and whenever we feel that there might be something not okay with it, we look into that in detail. But usually we just ship them as they are, and we try to handle them in a way so that they don't decompose. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Then the next one who wants to ask by himself, I guess, is Varimo Stuttgart, who says he's willing. Are you there? Do you want to ask by yourself? You didn't say it there.
Oh, okay. Now I guess you can hear me.
Yes.
Hi, Willi.
Hi, Michael. Hi. I would like to ask you if you could give a comment. In the beginning, you said your first startup, there was kind of team, if I get it right, and then Carbolution, you started up on your own, and if I get it also right, so you have employees. So maybe because you have seen both sides, maybe could you give a comment between starting up in a team versus starting up alone?
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important, if you start up in a team, that you have your properties clearly divided between the individuals. I have experienced a lot of fights in that startup that I was in, and it's in that case it was a leader that crystallized out, and he made the decisions, and the other two were just following him and fighting him. But they didn't have anything to decide. That was because there was no balance there, and there weren't how can I say, they didn't say, you have this and that to do, you have your things to do, and you have your things to do. There was one who did everything, or who wanted to rule everything. It was not clear what part of the team had what things to do, and that was a big problem. So the clearer you have a system, the easier it is to start something up in a team, I think. And of course, the more balanced it is, and the more, of course, it needs respect, but you don't need me to tell you that it takes respect. So balance and a clear system, that's what I think is very important. when doing things in a team.
Thank you.
So, and then there's, I guess, one last question, or maybe if there are more, then please type them now. But there was another question that I will ask. So if there's like an idea regarding their own startup and that person wants to get your feedback, what should they plan, like the idea, the topics, the cornerstones or something, in preparation to get your feedback? What would be the best thing to prepare beforehand?
Doesn't matter. Whenever you need help at anything, you can pick up your phone and call me, or contact me any other way. There are some people who have plans in preparing what they need to contact anybody. And these people also can contact me, because the problems that people have are very individual and are very different from each other. And if you have a problem at a very early stage, there's probably not very much to prepare. You know what I mean? I can't ask you to write a business concept to contact me how to write a business concept. So maybe I can give you the advice to be prepared yourself, to know what to ask me. And one very important thing, don't tell me your secrets. You have to know where your red line is. It's not a good idea to tell anybody the very heart of your idea. It's always good to keep something on your own as a secret. So, because there are a lot of coaches, they call themselves coaches, who just want to learn more about your idea and maybe earn their own money with your idea. So the only thing you have to prepare is know what your real secret is, know what the heart of your idea is, and don't tell me that.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. I think it does. There was another one that I should ask for the chat. Were there any books or people that influenced your decisions to make a startup?
There were many books that I read, but I don't think that a book inspired me to start up. There are a lot of books after I made the decisions to start up. There were a lot of books to inspire me how to do it, but I don't think that there were any books to inspire me. It was the way that things went wrong in the startup that I worked at as an employee. I learned a lot about starting up when I saw how it doesn't work, and that inspired me a lot. And maybe at one point I got into the core of myself, and I realized, I learned that I was gonna do that by myself now, and I just found out that it worked out perfect. But there was no external, like a book or something else, that inspired me before I did it. Now I have, of course, many inspiring sources, but it's not that I read a book and the book said, now you start your business, and then I started my business.
Okay, thank you. And if there are no questions left, and it seems like there's none, I would like to ask like the last question, and this is about the take-home message. So what do you want us to take home after this webinar?
I want you to see this as an option in your, that you, I'm not prepared. Let me put it the other way around. If you finish your stuff at the university, you will have to decide which way you go. And I want in that very decision that starting your own business, being self-employed, having an own company, maybe starting a business with a partner, that this is one option of the hopefully many options that you can choose of. I had only one option because I was so fascinated by what the industry showed me. I'm sure many of you will also have had inspiring experiences with industry partners because they do a lot to attract PhD students. And I want to be the one who did like a little bit of inspiring when it comes to starting their own business. I hope that I made maybe one or two of you a fan of starting their own business. Then I'm glad.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was quite inspiring and gave a lot of insights about how to do a startup and how it worked out for you. And for everyone else, like usually you do it in the university, I want to thank you with this.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks all for attending.
Thank you all for listening. I had a very good time. I hope you too had a good time, and I wish you all a very good, hopefully nice, if it comes to the weather, hopefully nice weekend, long weekend. Thank you.